So everything you say can and will be used against you. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. You are welcome to today's edition of Freshly Pressed 981. I am Mairo-Ese. It's 7:30 a.m., the last day in the month of April 2021. So it's the 30th of April today. Joining me to analyze the news stories, I have with me Ikemesit. Good morning, Ikemesit. How are you today?
Hey. Morning, Ayo. I'm very well. Good morning, Lagos. How have you been?
Very well, thank you. Excellent. Ikemesit is at George Ike on Twitter. We also have Nwaji. Good morning, Nwaji. How are you today?
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Ikemesit. Good to see you. And good morning, Lagos.
Excellent. Great to have you here on the show, Nwaji. Nwaji is at the corporate MC, and the corporate is with a K. You can follow us on Twitter at smooth981fm using the hashtag freshlypressed981 to send your comments and thoughts or reactions to today's story. You could also follow us on YouTube. We're streaming live on YouTube. So that's youtube.com/smooth981fm Lagos, and use the live chat option to send us a message. Better still, you could also send us a WhatsApp message on 0809 444 0981 to let us know your thoughts. Now we go straight into our stories for today. First one here from the Punch newspaper, Ikemesit. Senate summons Finance Minister Atahiru on 199 billion naira anti-terror fund spending. So the Ministry of Finance told the Senate Committee on Army on Thursday that the federal government spent 198.8 billion naira to fight terrorism from 2019 till date. The Permanent Secretary, Special Duties in the Finance Ministry, Aliyu Shinkafi, said all the funds appropriated for the war against insurgency had been released to the military authorities. Shinkafi said 2.5 billion naira was released in 2019 and tagged as administration, amongst other things. However, the military has come out to say actually they haven't. Yes, it was budgeted for. Yes, it was approved, but the money hasn't been disbursed by the Finance Ministry. Now, the Senate invited the Finance Minister to come before it to answer some questions. And as it's no surprise with some government functionaries, she didn't appear that, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed. Please take us through the story, Ikemesit.
Yeah, you've largely covered it, and it's quite interesting that the permanent secretary, special duties at the finance ministry, who was representing the finance minister at this hearing, said that all the funds that have been appropriated for, and for the war against the insurgency had been released to the military authorities. But when you actually look at the numbers, right, in the story, it doesn't appear that that's in the case. I mean, 75 billion was appropriated for in 2020, for example. 74.99 billion was released. You have a similar kind of shortfall going on in 2019. I mean, 2021, right, is a live year, so the finance ministry can get a pass for that. But almost 20 billion naira has been released in the second quarter alone to prosecute the war. In the Northeast, and the committee is quite concerned because, like, Ndume said, we are always, pointing fingers at the military, right? Asking if they could go better, asking, if their tactical know-hows could be improved, asking if, the weaponry and the gadgetry which they have at their disposal, right, is the best, possible, tools that they could find. And all of that, largely circles around funding, right? So the finance ministry also has questions to answer in terms of, how well they are empowering the military to, get the equipment, get the arms, get the ammunition, do the recruitment, right, and get the strategy right on the ground to be able to ensure that Nigeria comes out victorious, in the fight against terrorists. So the committee obviously wants more details, right, and. They've asked ministry officials to come back next Tuesday with details of all the releases that they made in 2019, because about 75 billion was appropriated for in 2019. 2018 was sort of a marquee year. If you are an observer who has been watching things on the ground, you know the two main Boko Haram factions, you know, JS and ISWAP, you know, really ramped up, you know, their presence, their operational capabilities, their tactical nuance in 2019, and you know, the government had to go through 3 appropriation cycles, if I could recall correctly, you know, in order to, in order to provide the necessary financing for the military to prosecute the war on the ground. So it's very important to understand what happened exactly in 2019 from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
And the Senate committee has asked the finance, ministry to come back with intimate details, right, of what appropriation in 2019 looked like. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just want to quote something as well that Senator Ali Nubi said. He says, we're blaming the military, but the soldiers are claiming that they have no equipment, arms and ammunition to work with because there was no money to buy them. So we are talking about the fact, I mean, we have a serious security or insecurity challenge in the country at the moment. And we're having issues like this come up with regards to monies being approved and it not being dispersed. So we should understand why. Is it because we don't have the money to disburse? Is it that someone is playing hanky-panky with the money? These are serious questions that need to be answered, and hopefully the Minister of Finance will appear before the Senate. All right, let's look at our next story, Nwaji. Look beyond military in war against insecurity, EU tells federal government. This is from the Guardian newspaper. The European Union has advised the federal government to look beyond military deployment in the ongoing war against terrorism in the Northeast and other crises causing insecurity across the country. I think the options they've preferred as something to look at are dialogue, legal instruments to be evolved and explored. There are a number of things in this article as well, including a statement from human rights activist Femi Falana on the president giving us a false impression on likely intervention by the US in insecurity challenges. Please break this down for us, Nwaji.
All right, thank you so much for that, Ayo. And it's a multi-layered article, like you indicated, several stories within it. The first being this report from the EU, the second aspect being the response or the opinion of Femi Falana with regards to this particular report on Buhari seeking assistance, or the EU, making statements about what Nigeria should do. And then there's statements about Nigeria seeking help from the US to relocate AFRICOM to this particular region to fight terrorism. For me, it boils down to leadership and leadership philosophy and the role of government. And going back to the story covered by Ikemesit, when we talk about the misappropriation of funds, all of these things are intertwined. I sent out a tweet a couple of days ago saying that we need to stop pretending we do not have a very critical security problem in Nigeria, and we're just burying our heads in the sands as if nothing is happening. We see these things every single day, but yet we have not declared a national state. And when you now begin to look at the trajectory and the history of how we got here, it's all a function and a failure of government. We have known what to do for well over a decade, and we have refused to do it. It's not even at the necessarily behest of the Buhari government that I'm going to lay blame on. They just happen to be the occupants of the current seat of government, so it has to be fingers pointed at them. But this is going as far back as the Yar'Adua administration, because we have refused to do the right and necessary thing, which is why we are here. And for me, it now becomes very, very embarrassing as a fiercely proud Nigerian for the EU to be telling us what to do with regards to military interventions to fight terrorism. It is very embarrassing to me as a fiercely proud Nigerian to see my president, Buhari, having to beg the Secretary of State for military intervention. That is absolutely ridiculous. This is the Nigerian military that we are talking about. This is the Nigerian military that set up ECOMOG. This is the Nigerian military that intervened in military situations across West Africa. We were the ones that you consulted with to intervene in situations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and now we are begging the Western world for military intervention? How can we even put our heads up and claim to be proud to be who we are when these are the conversations that we are having? And it's an absolute condemnation on government that we are at this point. And we know what the root of issue. We know what the problem is. The problem is mismanagement of funds and not taking these things seriously. If you had, and once again, I'm not blaming Buhari because he just happens to be the occupant, but it has been a continued cultural acceptance that we should be where we are, which is why we are where we are. And that's why you can have these conversations. You look across the nation, there is insecurity everywhere. People are getting killed, insurgents on the rise, militants are attacking people, you have miscreants misbehaving, the police infrastructure has gone kaput and gone quiet, and they're blaming Nigerians to say that it's because of NSARS that they're not reacting the way they're reacting. Everybody's afraid. You have River State now calling, for dusk to dawn curfews. How can you move about a country and conduct business normally and have any kind of commerce when you have this kind of security situation? Who can take you seriously? Who's going to come in to invest? Who's going to come in to want to do business with you when you have this particular situation? And yet we are now dillying and dallying and not understanding what we need to do when we know what needs to be done. Come on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Excellent input. Thank you very much, Nwaji. When you speak like that, I just want to think through it and just really wonder what is really good, what is really wrong, what is really wrong with our nation. I mean, you've illustrated some of the problems that we have, and when you talk about the glory days of how powerful our military was, it is really a sad shame as to where we are today. Let's move on to our next story, Ikemesit from the Premium Times. Big news, it's been trending since news broke yesterday. And now we have a report from Premium Times, why the Central Bank of Nigeria sacked First Bank Board, according to its governor, Godwin Emefiele. According to this report, Nigeria's premier bank, First Bank, has for years been plagued by bad credit decisions, significant and non-performing insider loans, and poor corporate governance practices. They say the regulator sacked the board of the bank and its holding company on Thursday in a dramatic move that came a day after the bank named a new managing director. In this, I think it's the remarks as a full, he's released a full statement on this. And one of the things, highlights of what he said, and I'd like you to please touch on them, is the fact that he found out from the media about the sack of Dr. Adedunton, who's now been reinstated. He's found out that they've been in, some sort of financial uprise. Well, I don't know the word to put in now. Financial concerns in the last 5 years, and CBN has had to look into the matters. And part of this issue is insider loans, defaulting payment of these loans, and so on. But please break it down for us. And that is, sorry, Ikemesit, putting side by side the fact that people have said that the CBN is too tight when it comes to regulation. They're almost micromanaging these banks. What do you make of this, please?
Well, I think, the interesting thing I suppose the most important thing to recognize, right, about First Bank is first, you mentioned those issues, right, that happened over the last 4 or 5 years, especially in terms of its non-performing loan rate, which was quite significant, actually above the CBN threshold, for quite some years. I think it started coming down last year, and in 2019, and last year, it was at what the CBN deemed to be sustainable numbers. But the most important thing is this, right? First Bank was classed by the central bank as what is called a systemically important bank. Now, this classification is generally used for lenders that the CBN deems will pose a significant risk to the banking industry if they fail. First Bank is Nigeria's oldest continuously running bank. It's got 31 million customers. It's got a deposit base of 4.2 trillion naira. It settles 22% of all the country's instant payments. Right. It's a very big bank.
It is. Right.
As a regulator, the CBN, right, is typically interested. I think there are a basket of 4 or 5 banks, right, that are considered to be systemically important. And so if their numbers begin to shift, right, into negative, red or warning signals territory, right, the bank is mandated to step in. What many people, right, haven't known up until now is that the CBN has actually taken, right, a very intimate, hands-on approach, right, in terms of managing, First Bank, right, and so, right, it needs to get the final, since that classification, right, occurred in 2016, it's had to get the final sign off of major management decisions at the bank. And what Emefiele was basically arguing in his statement yesterday was that changes such as swapping out the entire board of the bank, right, changing the managing director and the CEO, right, not just of the bank but of the holding company in which the bank is housed. Those are major decisions that the CBN should have been engaged with and should have signed off on before now, and those are pretty significant. And then when you combine that with the fact that there are concerns, right, around some insider loans, there's a particular loan, right, which there's a need using the shareholding of First Bank's primary shareholder, right, that the CBN, was very concerned, right, about that. And, for them, this combination, right, of, key management decisions being taken without its sign off, right, the bank's, right, non-performing loan profile, right, looking set to increase, because, right, of that loan guarantee again, which it doesn't appear as though the bank, right, had the final sanction of the CBN to take, forced the CBN's hand and ensure that the CBN, had to intervene. Yeah. Where does this leave us in terms of, investor perception, considering that, considering the comment that you made, right, that people think that the CBN is too hands-on? It really is anybody's guess, right? But there is, there is form in the game, right, and there's precedence, right, for national bank regulators stepping in and actually deciding the fate, right, and the management structure of very important, within their jurisdiction. So this
let me. Yes, just to break it down, and very quickly because of our time, Emmanuel from Ikeja is asking a question that's on the minds of a lot of people, perhaps who are not privy to the way that banks work in Nigeria. And that is that he's saying, I'm surprised that the Central Bank of Nigeria has the power to sack the board of directors of a bank. Is that a regulatory power? Is there such a legal provision for this?
There is actually, right, and the CBN has not been shy to use this in the past. If you recall, I think it was in 2017 or so, the CBN sacked the boards of I think 3 or 4 banks simultaneously at the same time, again because of those capital loan adequacy problems. So yes, the CBN has the legal and the regulatory nous to do this. It sounds like a very big power, with great power comes great responsibility. But yes, the CBN is actually, in the right legally, right, in terms of how we exercise this authority.
All right. Thank you very much for that. All right, let's move on to our next story, Nwaji, from the Vanguard newspaper. Reps, and this one I find I'm particularly interested in this, especially in the execution. Reps give Immigration Service 72 hours to issue international passports to owners. Now, this bill was raised by Honorable Ugonna Ozuribo at the plenary in a motion titled "Call for an End to the Scarcity of International Passport Booklets at Immigration Offices." Now, the passport is a very important tool of national identity. And of course, we know that for a number of people who need to transact business, travel abroad and things like that. And it's been a hassle. We've almost gotten used to the fact that if you go to the passport office, be prepared for a delay, except you pay a bit extra to grease the palms of certain officials there. Now, the resolution of this session is that they must produce these passports, especially for those who have captured, within 3 days. Nwaji, do you think this is possible? And please tell me your thoughts on this story in totality.
I'll start with your question. Do I think it's possible? Absolutely. This is Nigeria. I mean, the sheer miracle and speed with which things can happen, especially when you have directives, will astonish you. For whatever reason, claim for the past several weeks or several months that they haven't had passport booklets, so which is what is causing the delays. And these things happen from time to time. It all boils down to procurements. I mean, who knows? Who knows what the reasons are? But I think for me, the larger issue is, why do we even have this problem to begin with? Going back to the point you made, and I think this also correlates to a story that was covered last week, where the Minister of Interior said that he was going to various passport offices to curb now, collecting extra money, like you pointed towards, Ayo, to facilitate a quicker processing of your passport. So for me, going back to the statement that I made on that story last week, and I'm going to make again now, is that how best do you professionalize and institutionalize the processing of passports to eliminate all these issues? And it's an end-to-end supply chain process that we now need to consider. You need to track and look at the number of applications you receive in a month and what the turnaround time is for that, the processing of those applications to now produce passports. You now benchmark that against making sure you have an inventory to ensure that you have that amount of passports ready. And that's how you professionalize these situations to make sure that you do not run amiss. And then you now figure out how long it takes. Passport, if it's a 30-day process, you order 30 days ahead of time. It's all down to simple management. And I find it bewildering because I do credit Ministry of the Interior with being very progressive and being very professional. So it's unfortunate that this one particular MDA, which is connected to the Nigerian Immigration Service, is behind the reputation that the entire ministry has positioned themselves on for the past couple of years. So hopefully this mandate from the reps will facilitate a quicker release of the passport booklets to ensure that Nigerians who have applied for passports, who have done the biometric captures and also the picture captures and the biodata captures, can now just go and collect their passports and go about their business, which allows them to travel, conduct business, do commerce, go visit loved ones, travel for medical reasons, travel for university and education reasons, which is part and parcel of what not majority, but what most Nigerians do. So I'm happy that the reps have intervened, and I hope it yields results that they're looking for so that we can move away from this and then now begin to figure out how do we turn around this process and avoid these issues.
Excellent. We should make you the Comptroller General of the Passport Office, because you unbundle the issue so simply. It looks like it's so simple, and then it becomes very complicated when it has to be executed. The House has mandated its committees on Interior and Foreign Affairs to ensure compliance and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. So in 4 weeks, we'll see just how effective this mandate is. Let's move on to our next story here from the Vanguard newspaper, Ikemesit. Woman arrested for using children as beggars in Lagos. Ikemesit, could you turn down the volume of my audio in your background, please? Thank you. All right, so
Great.
the Lagos State Police Command has arrested a woman popularly known as Mama Ajayi for allegedly using children to beg for alms at Chisco area of Lekki in Lagos. It breaks it down. There are 2 cases here identified in this article. And Ikemesit, please just take us through, including one very disturbing one about what happened in a hotel with some of the attendants sexually assaulting a resident, a guest in the hotel. Please take us through the stories.
Okay, right. So just like you said, the Lagos State Police Command paraded 2 persons. Yesterday, I believe, one was a woman who was arrested for allegedly using her children to beg for alms. This happened around the Chisco area of Lekki, and the gist is that a certain Mama Ajayi, who has been warned in the past about using one of her children, right, as beggars in the streets, was caught using another child of ours, right, to beg for alms. And this is after, she was offered remediation and empowerment efforts by a local, by a local charity, by a local foundation in the area. And the complainants, the foundation in this case said that 3 of this woman's children had been rescued from her, and all in a span of time between December and now. So this seems like this is a chronic case of child endangerment, right? Which a lot of listeners might not know is an actual thing. Going by the fact that you see kids hawking and you see kids begging right on the streets of Lagos, and also other Nigerian cities. But this is actually a real offense, right? And I suppose the object lesson, right, in this is, if you have been given several passes by the law, it gets to a point in time where for child endangerment and for street begging, right, the law sort of has a cutoff point. The second Yeah, the second issue has to do with a hotel guest, somewhere in Bariga, right, on the mainland, who was accused of assaulting a hotel worker. So this person checked into a hotel, right, and I think at about 1:30 a.m. the story says he broke into one of the staff rooms and assaulted this hotel staffer, right? The hotel staffer made a complaint to the police, and the police were able to arrest the accused person. Now, these two people will soon be charged to court. They haven't been charged to court. Investigations are going on in the alleged, sexual assault story. And I think, from sort of a public human interest perspective, it's good to remind listeners, and it's good for those listeners to remind those, within their circles of influence, right, that, we might say that there are a lot of things that have gone wrong and there are a lot of things that are going wrong, right, in Nigeria. But sometimes, just sometimes, the law does catch up with people. It could be you, it could be someone within your circle of influence. And so it's just a reminder, for everyone, to do their best to be model citizens and behave well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ikemesit. Modupe Sanda on YouTube says, why do you keep saying you're not blaming the administration that's been on seat for the past 6 years? Are you saying we've been frozen in time since 2015? A number of people actually talked about that how can you say you won't blame the president? Kenneth Okoji says, why do your thoughts are good, but absolving PMB dents your great submission. Remember, this was one of the strong points sequel to 2015. Ken Oji. And going to the passport stories, Yinka says, reps asking that passport be printed. A good one though, but do they know people are actually trying to japa, which is runaway, thanks to their incompetence, just like they were asking for more seats to be created for women, thereby thereby increasing the cost of governance. And then Sheon says, did you say a few weeks? This passport scarcity issue has been on for at least 2 years. I had to renew mine in 2019 May and was the exact same story. The first problem is that we don't produce our own passport booklets. Next problem is corruption. So the reps can mandate all they want if the root problems are not addressed, but at least we have seen how the government mandate on the Apapa traffic, or how that has turned out. Okay, let's go on to our next story, Nwaji. Embattled Niger communities negotiate with Boko Haram, 20 million naira levy agreed. It's been gathered that about 65 communities in Niger State have resorted to negotiating and signing a peace deal with insurgents to avoid future raids. What do you make of negotiating with terrorists? We know there's a stance of we don't negotiate with terrorists, and in some cases, like, you know what, sometimes you need to come to the table when, in certain circumstances.
Yeah, let me just to quickly clarify, because they're all connected, just going back to the comments that came in. I'm not absolving the PMB administration of anything. The point I was trying to make is that this problem didn't start with PMB. The point I was trying to make is that it goes as far back as Yaradua. And all I said is not going to place blame solely on PMB, because this problem has been going on before they took office. It is a Nigerian problem that consecutive presidents have happened to find themselves in. So I just want to make that point absolutely clear. Now, going to the point on Niger State, it's what happens. You see, it's a security concern. And when you leave people, and credit to the Niger State government, man. I really respect that guy, because he has been at the forefront of making his voice heard and making the point known that if you guys abandon us, we will do what we have to do. So this is one of the things that the communities are going to have to do, because think about it, Ayo. They know these guys. They're not just negotiating with people they don't know. These people also come from their communities. They wouldn't have these conversations if they're not able to identify them. So I'm sorry, you figure out the solutions that work for you. You have to customize things. You can stand tall and say, we do not negotiate with terrorists, but if I give you the results you want, then you have to figure out something else. And if these guys have figured out that the way to make sure that people don't die and we have some sort of security stability is to sit down with these guys and work things out and maybe exchange some money, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm sorry, until you're in their situations, when you've walked 1,000 miles into someone else's shoes, you have no right to judge. So leave them, let them work it out. If they get the results and outcomes they're looking for, then bless them all. That's my...
Sean says on WhatsApp, if you pay the government taxes and you can't get security, you might as well pay the insurgents the taxes. That's what it is. Tongue-in-cheek comment. This day's newspaper, Ikemesit, sexual assault, and looks like you have the legal stories today. And just going back again to that one on with the hotel, but this is a popular
and the sexual
case.
assault stories.
Pardon?
And the sexual assault stories, apparently.
And sexual assault stories, yes. Lagos police deny plans to release Baba Ijesha. I mean, a number of people might have followed the the popular actor, Yoruba comic actor, Olanrewaju James Omilani, popularly known as Baba Ijesha, who was arrested and detained for alleged defilement of a minor. There was news around, rumors going around that he was going to be released on bail. However, the police have said they've denied plans. However, they have mentioned that he's been charged with defilement, and that is a bailable offense. But please break this down for a number of people who are outraged and incensed that how would he, having been caught on CCTV, be released on bail?
It's really about the law itself, right? The law classes certain offenses as deserving of bail, and those that aren't, and especially for first-time offenders. So typically, if you've been convicted of a previous offense, then the law imagines that you have an incentive if you are accused of committing another offense of either escaping or not attending your trial or not cooperating with the investigation, and in that case, access to bail is somewhat constrained. So basically, what the Commissioner of Police, who, credit to him, appears to have taken the gauntlet, right, and is leading from the front on this, said, he personally interviewed all of the parties involved, including Baba Ijesha. And he says, that the police is coalescing around 2 general criminal charges, right? So they have 2 criminal charges in mind for Baba Ijesha. One is for the defilement, right, which I believe is for the offense that was caught, on CCTV that actually, led us down this road and eventually led to his arrest. The other is a more straitjacket sexual assault story, which apparently happened a bunch of years ago, right, and has only come to light, right, as part of the police investigation. So you're looking at 2 offenses. I'm not exactly clear if it involves the same person or if
it's the same person.
Yeah, so 2 offenses involving the same person. I would say, for now, kudos to the police for sort of not only appearing to do a good job on the investigative side, but in terms of keeping Nigerians apprised of this. Yeah. What would give me a lot of comfort is if this actually goes to court and we see justice happen in this case. And I mean, there's a presumption of innocence, and so I'm not going to issue a referendum on Baba Ijebu's guilt, but it'll be interesting to see if a conviction is secured from this, and then this becomes a test case that probably opens the floodgate for people to be more open about offenses and behaviors of this kind.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I have to say kudos to those who have, spoken out. You're saying about the police keeping the public abreast of information, and it's because of the people who have come out to ensure that this isn't swept under the carpet, and that if it's followed through, like you said, to court, and if he's found guilty, conviction. Thank you very much, Ikemesit, and thank you, Nwaji, for joining me today to analyze the stories. Final one here, funny one, but we won't go into it in detail, just to let you know what's happening in your country. Painter impersonates Obailegushi, defrauds Facebook lover of 51 million naira. This report is in the Punch newspaper if you'd like to find out more. Thank you. You can find Nwaji at the Corporate MC on Twitter, Corporate MC with a K, and Ikemesit at George Ike on Twitter. Follow us on Smooth 981 FM on Twitter. Use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 to send your comments or to follow, to take the conversation online. In a few minutes, Tega will be joining me for the Locker Room 981. It's sports like you never heard it before. Always such a great time. So do join us then from 8:15 till 8:45. It's Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life.
Thanks, Ayo. Thanks, Ikemesit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, people.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ayo. Thanks, Nwaji. Always a pleasure with you.
Nwaji, yeah.
No, I think people need to understand that OBJ was the last president that cared about security. So for me, it's just about being balanced. This didn't start with Buhari. That's just my point. Okay?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that. And it makes a lot of sense. That's the truth. And it's a problem that has developed over the years. Unfortunately, it's almost as if it's reaching a climax at this point.
I mean, for me, it started with good luck because all that he should have eliminated Boko Haram. So let's just call a spade a spade. It's not about giving credit to anybody, you know. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, then. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone who's watched and still watching now. Have a wonderful weekend. Join us later. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Guys. Take care.